Hi, everybody. This is Allison Williams, and I am the owner and founder of the Williams Law Group located in Short Hills, New Jersey. I want to welcome you all to what is a very exciting project that we've just started. It is Moving Families Forward with Williams Law Group. So, let me talk to you a little bit about what this program is and why you should care, why you should be here, why you should be listening to us Mondays at 7. So I started this law firm in August of 2013, and we have grown 856% over the past 4 years. And we have done that because we have adopted a model of serving our clients in a way that is fundamentally different than any other law firm that I am aware of. So a lot of family law attorneys will connect you with mental health professionals and financial providers and different professionals along the way as a part of getting you help in distress of solving your problem, right? Because some problems are not legal problems. But one of the things that myself and many different members of my team kind of thought about as we were really digging deep into the problems of divorce is that we realized that we wanted to have a platform, we wanted to have an opportunity to help people with the problems of divorce in a way that didn't just wait until the end and help them along the way. It was a complete shift in the way that you think about divorce. So we have what's referred to as a concierge service, and our goal is to give people something to look forward to as they are changing and shifting out of their old life. They're creating a new life that they are excited about. So the divorce doesn't become about destruction, it becomes about construction and creating something new from the life that you are now going to be living. So with that, we have been helping our clients in this way for some time now, and we're always building and growing and working with different professionals. But it's given me such a great opportunity to meet so many wonderful professionals that do different things that help people along the road to divorce and creating that new life. And so through this process, I have found that I am able to work with people in a fundamentally different way. And we wanted to share that not just with our clients, but with the community at large. So I wanted to give people an opportunity, a space to come where they could learn something about their lives, about their families, about their health, about their situation, about activities that they could engage in that would make their lives better. Whether you're a client of the firm, a potential client of the firm, a referral source, or just somebody who's looking for information and likes to learn new things. So through that process, we are now going to be bringing you Moving Families Forward every Monday at 7 p.m. And we're going to share with you a lot of different types of information, whether it's about products and services, or it's about new conceptions, new ways of thinking about things, ideas for kids and how they can be better served through the process of divorce. And we want you to come back and join us. So please, if you are here today, please like and share. Let us know what we can do to give you more value, give you more service, and give you a better opportunity because we've created this for you. So we have an hour tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to bring you our first guest. And one of the things I should have said that I didn't say at the outset is every week we're going to have on a different guest. This is really about the people that can help our clients and help our clients in a lot of different ways. Our clients, our community, our friends and family. So our first guest tonight is Stephanie Rizzuto, and Stephanie has over 10 years of experience and over $250 million working with closed mortgages. And she works for the company of, in her mortgage industry, she works for Absolute Home Mortgage. One of the things that I love about Stephanie is that I met her through an organization called NADP, which is the National Association of Divorce Professionals. So she doesn't just help people with mortgages, she helps people in divorce with mortgages. So that is something that's very different than the average mortgage broker. I mean, obviously, many different people are going to encounter divorce, but Stephanie has an expertise in working with people that are suffering the credit ramifications of a divorce, that are dealing with financial circumstances incident to divorce that's a little bit different than somebody who's buying their first home or somebody that may be in an intact relationship. So we really want to give you a chance to have Stephanie here and have a discussion with her about what it is that she does. She's one of the top 5 producers in her industry. So you really have an expert here. We're so happy to have you. Stephanie, welcome to the
Thank
program.
you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So why don't we just dive right on in? The first thing that I hear a lot of people talk about when they ask us about mortgages is that they're concerned about alimony and child support ramifications for
Hmm.
qualifications of mortgages and whether they can recast their mortgages based on the income constraints or benefits of paying or receiving alimony. So with that,
Absolutely.
how long do you actually need to receive alimony before that can be something that's considered by a mortgage lender when it's time to get qualified for a mortgage?
Perfect. So that's a really good question because a lot of people that are in the beginning stage of divorce, they do come to me and they ask me, how long do I need to receive alimony before I can use this as income to qualify for my next purchase? Or how long do I need to receive child support before I could use this income to qualify? So alimony, the normal answer, the straightforward answer is 6 months. For conventional financing, I'm going to need to see 6 months receipt of alimony. If somebody is going to go the route of an FHA loan, then it's 3 months of alimony received. The same rules do apply with child support. So if they're receiving child support for 6 months for conventional financing, that would work. And with FHA financing, if they're receiving it for 3 months, I would be able to use that income as well.
Now, Stephanie, you said FHA. So I know what that means, but there may be some people that don't know what that means. So can you tell us what FHA means and what that distinction might mean for a mortgage?
Perfect. So there is FHA and conventional loans. FHA is a government-backed loan. FHA financing, the guidelines are going to be a little bit different than conventional financing. They may be able to have a little bit of a lower credit score to qualify for a mortgage. The debt to income ratios are going to be a little bit higher, allowed to go a little bit higher for FHA financing. Conventional is a little bit more strict. FHA is a little bit more lenient with some of those things. PMI is permanent on an FHA loan, whether they're putting down 20% or even more. Obviously, with conventional financing, if you don't know, if you're putting at least 20% down, then you are not required to take on PMI. Ideally, a conventional loan is most ideal on paper, for the PMI reasons, interest rate reasons, but a lot of people do take on an FHA loan for different reasons. So if I have a client who comes to me and says, I really need to move on and get into a home as quickly as possible after this divorce, I'm not looking to get into a rental situation. Maybe they have children that they want to keep in the community in the same school system. That type of person, I would say to them, okay, then the fastest way for you to get into this house is to go the FHA route, because I'm only going to need to show 3 months receipt of alimony and child support in order for you to qualify.
Okay, so now you also mentioned another phrase that I'm familiar with that some people might not be. So what is PMI?
That's private mortgage insurance. So on a conventional loan, if you're putting less than 20% down, the lender is going to require private mortgage insurance. It's a way for the banks, they're protected against the loan. With FHA, that is permanent. So the FHA guideline keeps the PMI on the loan through the life of the loan, whether you have 20% down or whether you have 50% down, it doesn't make a difference.
Okay, understood. So you mentioned earlier what ramifications are for alimony, but talk to us about child support, because we know, or for those of you that don't know, I should tell you that there is a distinction right now for purposes of taxes for how alimony and child support are treated. So we know that there have been some recent modifications to our tax law that now eliminates, as of next year, the deduction that one receives for alimony. So it's going to be dollars in, dollars out from one house to the other, the same way that it is currently and will remain for child support. But is there a qualification? Is there a distinction between how alimony is treated versus child support for purposes of qualifying for a loan?
So child support is, it could be a benefit for somebody who's receiving child support, and I just need that little bit more income in order for them to qualify, because child support can be grossed up by 25%. So I'm able to take that number and gross it up by 25%. And even though they're not technically receiving that money today, the idea is that they will be receiving that money because things do change and everything does increase in price, unfortunately, instead of decrease in price.
Absolutely.
So I'm able to gross up that child support income by 25%.
Okay, so we know that if alimony and child support are treated differently, there have been times in the course of negotiating divorce settlements that we look at alimony as income, and there are other times that we look at it as a debt.
Correct.
So for purposes of involving someone with your expertise, how would alimony ever be calculated as a debt in the course of qualifying for a mortgage?
Awesome question. So a lot of people do ask me that as well. So if you're coming to me to qualify for a mortgage and you're paying $1,000 a month in alimony, it's not just you have $1,000 a month liability like $1,000 a month car payment. It doesn't get calculated that way. So for example, if your gross income is $10,000 a month and you have $1,000 a month alimony payment, now your gross income is $9,000 a month. It's not $10,000 a month in gross income plus $1,000 a month in a liability. So when you see that structured on paper for loan purposes, it's actually a huge benefit to that client who is making that purchase to just take the reduction in their income rather than add that liability of $1,000 a month on.
So it sounds a lot like what we do when we're trying to qualify for business loans, that we would recast a P&L or a profit and loss statement in order to show income in a certain way. So is that something that you're working with people on when you're helping them to qualify for their mortgages?
Yeah, I mean, because if you think about it this way, it's not like they all of a sudden went to the store and signed up for $1,000 payment. They really, that $1,000 a month alimony payment really is a reduction in their income rather than just taking on a debt for the next 5 years. Or
That's if you're paying it, that is.
Right. Well, yes, that's true. But you know, it's really a reduction in their income, so it's calculated that way for loan purposes as well.
Understood. So again, for those of you that are just joining us, I'm here today with Stephanie Rizzuto. Stephanie is with Absolute Home Mortgages, and she's helping us today talk about what the ramifications are of different mortgage options and the concerns that are particular to people going through a divorce. And so Stephanie has shared with us a little bit about the impact of alimony and child support, as well as how alimony can be viewed as a debt when you're going through the process of preparing for and applying for a mortgage. So Stephanie, I want to turn now to the issue of ramifications for non-compliance, because I joked a little bit earlier about the idea that, well, you know, you have a debt if you're actually paying the alimony. We know, unfortunately, that there are many people that don't comply with their support obligations in divorce, and that's something that's a real concern for people. What happens when you have a mortgage that's in both names, but one person was essentially responsible for making the payments? Let's say the person that occupies the house is still supposed to be making the payments, and they don't do that. In that situation, the person that is technically defaulting on paper, but they really don't have responsibility for that loan anymore, is there some way they can get out from underneath that, or are they just stuck with the bad acts of their former spouse?
Right. So what happens is, let's just use, for example, we have Mr. and Mrs. on the mortgage to begin with when they're married. Mr. and Mrs. get a divorce. In the property settlement agreement and divorce that you draw up, Mr. is going to keep the house. He is taking 100% ownership in the home, and Mrs. is now moving on. So 6 months later, Mr. loses his job and decides he can no longer afford the home, and he stops making payments on the home, but the mortgage itself is still in both names. Now, a year later, Mrs. goes to purchase her next home and credit gets pulled by me, and I see 6 months worth of delinquent mortgage payments. And right off the bat, you would think this person is no longer going to qualify to purchase a home because they are in default. I would obtain the property settlement agreement and divorce papers to make sure that it clearly states Mr. has 100% ownership of that home, because that's very important and that's a crucial part to this. If it doesn't state that, then technically they're still both responsible. So it really needs to state that Mr. is 100% responsible for this house and Mrs. is basically just leaving her and signing off on the home.
So is that your identification agreement, where someone would say that they're essentially absolved of the responsibility for something and they can come after their spouse if their spouse were to not comply with the property settlement agreement?
Well, that would be the first thing that I would look at. The second thing I would look at is, okay, can I prove that Mrs. has not made any mortgage payments in the last 12 months? Because if Mrs. has bailed out Mr. X and made a mortgage payment here and there for him, then that's not going to fly. So she cannot be making any payments out of her personal accounts on this home anymore. So if I do show that for a 12-month history, she has not made any payments, I have a property settlement agreement showing that he is 100% responsible for this home, more than likely she will be able to move forward with financing on her own home. Now, the simple way is to go FHA. And the reason why I say FHA is because all I need to do is prove 12 months she has not made any payments. Payments have been made from him if they have been made. But basically that she's not making payments. And then she would be able to obtain FHA financing. If she wanted to do conventional financing, the loan would just have to score, which means that Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac would just have to approve this loan through the automated system, just like any other file that goes through this system. So if that were to happen, and she would essentially be able to move forward and buy her own home, even with those mortgage delinquencies on her credit.
Wow. So, there's a lot that goes into this. And one of the things that I really want to just, commend Stephanie for is the fact that, she obviously has such a great wealth of knowledge about the mortgage process. And it sounds like you give your clients a lot of advice, not just someone comes in and says, hey, I want to apply for a mortgage. And you say, okay, what's your credit? And you give them an application. Sounds like you kind of walk them through what some of the options are. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that looks like if somebody were to come to your office and ask for help with that?
So I always do that too. I don't just say, here's what we're going to do and we're going to move forward this way. Because it's all about educating your people. Just like when you sit down with somebody, you want to educate them what they're going to get into and what the whole process is going to look like from start A to point B. So when somebody comes to speak with me, it's how are we going to get you from the start A to point B? So what is the best financing options for you? Is it that conventional loan or is it the FHA loan? Well, here's what your payments are going to look like with a conventional loan, and here's what your payments are going to look like with an FHA loan. And, how are we going to make you the most comfortable, especially when we're dealing with clients of divorce? The situation isn't just so, here's what you're going to do, and we're going to move forward. These people, they've been ripped out of their homes more than likely. Things have been, families are torn apart. So they're looking for that guidance and they're looking for answers. And they want to make sure that their next step in their life, that chapter that they're about to get into, is really going to be the right fit for them. So even for me as a loan officer, it's very important for me to guide them and educate them so that they make the right decision moving forward and that they're able to open up that next chapter of their life and be happy. So what I would do is sit down with them and lay out the numbers and just look at everything and say, here's your options with A and here's your options with B. And what are you really looking to do? What type of payment are you looking at? Now you're coming from a house where two people have been working, or your husband has been working, or the wife has been working, and now it's just you, Mr. or Mrs. Now you have to adjust. So if you have $10,000 a month of gross income between two parties, now you have $5,000 of gross income. Now you need to survive off of this. So we're not living off of a $3,000 mortgage payment anymore. We need to look at how are you going to live each month? How are you going to be comfortable?
Yeah, well, Stephanie, that definitely is good sage advice. I mean, one of the things that we're always telling our clients here is, starting with the process of doing a case information statement, which is that financial disclosure document that everyone has to file in divorce, that oftentimes is very overwhelming. And people sit down for the first time and really get a grasp of, oh my God, am I really spending X dollars a week on groceries? And, am I really spending this much on servicing my credit card debt? And a lot of times we help them through figuring out how best to restructure their life. And sometimes that restructuring is with mortgages. Sometimes it's not possible, or at least not immediately. One of the things that I do want to note is we did have some questions come in. So I want to jump over quickly and just kind of interject here. So Polisa Kelly asked the question, really related back to your last example, Stephanie, of Mr. would not have to buy Mrs. out of the home. So she's asking, would there have to be a buyout? And then secondarily, or perhaps Mr. has to refinance in his name only so that the mortgage isn't in both of their names. Can you speak to that a little bit?
A lot of times, the party that is staying in the home is required to refinance to remove the X from the mortgage and deed. A lot of times that is very important for the divorce attorney to speak to the mortgage loan officer and say, Mrs. is going to stay in the home with the children and Mr. is going to leave the home. What do we need to do And if we have Mrs. paying out X amount of dollars in alimony per month, how is that going to affect her from refinancing? So, because that's huge, because if all of a sudden Mrs. is paying $3,000 a month in alimony and $1,000 a month in child support, she may not qualify to hold on to this property anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank you for switching up those pronouns there. We
I
oftentimes get
needed
people,
to.
yeah, we oftentimes get people that will ask the question, can I receive alimony if I am a stay-at-home father or if I am the lesser earner spouse? And we have seen quite a rise as women are moving into the workforce. Now, over 40% of households have a woman as the primary wage earner. So I'm glad that you threw that out there. So we have
I've had that happen too. I had a client who was going to be paying alimony. She purchased a home before her divorce was finalized, and we were working against the clock because we needed her divorce. We needed her to close on her home before her divorce was going to be finalized because her alimony payments were going to basically knock her out of the game for being able to purchase a home. So if she had waited until the divorce was finalized, she would have not qualified on her own to make this purchase.
Yeah, definitely.
This is really funny, but my charger, I do have to grab my computer.
Okay. So we're just going to take one moment for everyone that's here. Thank you so very much. Oh, she's already back. But I want to just remind everybody that's just tuning in now that I'm here today with Stephanie Rizzuto of Absolute Home Mortgage. Stephanie is one of the top 5 producers in her industry, in her company. And Absolute Home Mortgage actually received Morris County's Best of the Best Mortgage Company for 2017, 2015, and 2014. So we have a great resource here today. And Stephanie, I just wanted to let you know, we actually got another question in from Chris Cassidy. He asked, in your opinion, how much of someone's gross income should go to a mortgage?
Well,
yeah, I know that's an easy one, right? Have a number.
That's not an easy one because and this is like, I feel like I say this on a daily basis to clients. Here's what you qualify for on paper, but are you going to comfortably be able to live this way?
Amen.
And I do this conversation a lot with people. So if you qualify for a $5,000 mortgage payment on paper, do you really want to make that payment in the beginning of every month? Because there's food, there's gas, electricity, there's car insurance, there's car payments, there's saving up for your kids' college, whatever the case may be. So just because I tell you you qualify for this doesn't mean you really do qualify for this.
Absolutely.
And you don't want to get people into a situation like that. And then all of a sudden, 2-3 years later, they're stuck. They can't make those mortgage payments. And they come back to me and say, but Stephanie, you said I qualified. So I always like to have the conversation with people before I even say to you, Allison, you qualify for this. It's, Allison, how much do you want to spend per month? What are you comfortable spending? And especially like I just said before, in these divorce situations, now we're coming from, a whole family dynamic where there potentially could have been 2 incomes into the household. Now there's 1. So it's, what are you comfortable spending per month on your own, and not just as a family?
Yeah, definitely. And that's a very important point, the could versus should. And there are a lot of times that people want to go for as much as they can get because they're really craving going back to that marital lifestyle, that was funded by two wage earners in the household, and perhaps you may have brought either one of the spouses, or perhaps both of them brought money into the marriage that then kind of gave them that head start. Maybe you got gifts from the wedding. There's a lot of different things that go into it, but that lifestyle and how much can you afford is a very important question. And one of the things that we do here at Williams Law Group is we make sure that when we're talking to our clients, it's not just about what you want. It's about what your ultimate goal is, because your goal today, getting into that dream house, may put you into economic turmoil, and you really don't want to go there. There's enough to adjust to in settling yourself and your kids into a new household. And there's a lot of things that happen incident to divorce. So, a lot of times people don't think about some of the things that are kind of the unforeseen taxes of divorce. Like when you are now not able to afford that country club, your kids are going to be going to the movies. Or when you're now going to be working more hours to put more food on the table, because you don't have that other income, your kids are not going to be able to stay home alone. So you need a babysitter and things like that. So we see that a lot, and we help people with that. But for those people that are just showing up, Chris did say thank you for that. He loves the transparency of the could versus should. I did
want to give you my number that I tell people. The more, because I gave you my opinion and what I usually advise all clients, but the number is you really probably want to be at 30% max. Now, that's not the number. All my mortgage people that are out there watching are probably like, wait, that's not the number. I know that's not the number. The number is much higher in order to qualify. On a conventional loan mortgage, we could go up to 44.9%, and on FHA, 46.9%. Mortgage payment, which is the whole housing, which is principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and PMI if there is PMI. And HOA if there is HOA, which is association fees on a townhome or condo. That is the number based on your gross income. But if you actually look at your gross income and actually what you take home and then what you would be paying, if you max out at that 45% number, numbers are tight. Yeah. So I usually tell people you want to be probably around 30% to live comfortably, and that would be max. And again, I also feel this is just my opinion. This is just how I would live. Obviously, they can do whatever they want with it.
Yeah, well, Stephanie, I thank you for pointing that out. I can't imagine in the lovely land of New Jersey that anyone could afford to go as high as 45%. And this is gross income. Remember, she's gross, guys. So if you're taking 45%, by the time you pay your state and local taxes, association fees notwithstanding, just the cost of New Jersey is so expensive that you really couldn't. I don't foresee that people could really get by comfortably if they were actually in that 45% range. Mm-hmm. But before we move on to the next question, I just want to remind everybody that I'm here today talking with Stephanie Rizzuto. Stephanie is with Absolute Home Mortgage, and this is one of New Jersey's finest mortgage companies. Stephanie is one of the top 5 in her company. She is a high producer, and she works with people in divorce and helps people dealing with divorce to be able to move forward with their lives in a way that suits their needs as well as their wants. So thank you again, Stephanie, for the information.
Thank you for having me.
And I want to now, shift a little bit and ask you about the years remaining on an alimony term. So you talked earlier about how to use alimony as both income as is debt for mortgage qualification. But how many years remaining of alimony and/or child support do you need to show in order to use this income?
So I would need to prove with a property settlement agreement that there is a minimum of 3 years of child support and alimony remaining in order to qualify. And that's remaining from when you close. So we need that 3-year continuance of either alimony or child support in order to use that as usable income. So if you come to me and you say, well, I'm receiving alimony and my alimony is expiring at the end of this year, then yes, you are receiving it today, but I can't use that alimony to qualify you.
Wow. Okay. So just wanted to let you know, Stephanie, that we are experiencing some buffering. I want to thank Judy Ann for mentioning that. That's unfortunate. I will make the recording of today's show available for anyone that wants a copy of the show. You can email us at info@awilliamslawgroup.com. And we will provide you a copy of the unfiltered video. So sometimes you'll have some issues on Facebook. We're able to download this video using the technology that we're using to get you a copy of it so it's clear and crisp and you can actually hear everything that Stephanie is sharing with us. So we're just going to move right on. And I want to ask you, Stephanie, what's the importance of the family law attorney and mortgage loan officer meeting prior to the divorce? And before you answer that question, I just want to kind of give a little frame for this. So there are a lot of different professionals in our industry, in the divorce industry, and sometimes it's very segmented, as I mentioned at the top of the show, right? You meet with your divorce attorney, it's a problem that comes up. The way we solve the problem is I refer you out to somebody. Maybe I do a handoff and I do an introduction, or maybe I just shoot you an email and say, here's their contact information. That's not the way we do it here at my firm. But some lawyers will handle it that way. Mm-hmm. But having a relationship between two professionals can serve a benefit. So can you talk to us a little bit about that and what your perspective is on the mortgage loan industry professional and the divorce attorney and the family law attorney rather meeting beforehand?
The importance to meet beforehand, before anything gets set in stone with alimony payments, with child support payments, with, you have to refinance this home in X amount of time to get your ex-husband or ex-wife off the loan. It's because every situation is different, and everybody's work may be different, their employment may be different. So we really need to look at the whole picture. And so where does Mr. want to go after this divorce, and where does Mrs. want to go after this divorce? Because the ultimate goal is not to have somebody say, I can't buy my home because I don't qualify. It's how can they both move on to the next chapter of their lives, and as happy as they could possibly be. So meeting with a divorce attorney and, by the family law attorney and I sitting down, so we have to figure out how to maybe structure that alimony so that way Mr. and Mrs. still qualify to move on. How to structure this child support in the same fashion. How to put something in the property settlement agreement that's going to be doable in a timely manner. To say that Mrs. has to refinance within 3 months of the divorce being finalized in order to remove Mr. off the mortgage, that might not be something that's doable. Things happen, life happens. So we just need to really talk about the plan to get them from point A to point B. What I would say is the most important thing is that alimony and child support, because that could really be a deal breaker in some situations. I've had clients where they've wanted to maybe pay their alimony off sooner. So rather than just saying I'm going to pay $2,000 a month to my ex, now all of a sudden they're paying $10,000 a month to the ex, and they want to take on a 15-year mortgage. But on paper now they only qualify for a 30-year mortgage. They're already unhappy that this whole situation happened, and they're probably unhappy that they're paying $10,000 a month. But
yeah,
to be told now that they aren't going to get the mortgage that they want, that's just like another added level of disappointment. So, if you and I were working on this together, we would say, let's not have him pay out $10,000 a month for a year or two just to kind of get rid of this alimony, because he needs to do A, B, C. And he's not going to be able to even do A if we structure this way. So we have to kind of come up with a plan together to get both parties to where they need to be.
Yeah, well, getting both parties to where they need to be is definitely an important part of the process, and it's something that we need the help of more than just the divorce attorney and their team. We need the professionals that we align ourselves with. Again, everybody, we have today with us Stephanie Rizzuto of Absolute Home Mortgage. Stephanie is a top producer in her industry and has been kind enough to give us some insights today about what she has personally experienced. We talked a lot about alimony and child support and the impact that has on the mortgage process, the application process. But one of the things I wanted to kind of ask you about, because we don't often get to see behind the curtain. We oftentimes just kind of get the nice, happy, positive story about what you were able to accomplish. But can you talk to us about what some of the pitfalls are when somebody either comes to you too late or doesn't have the right information or doesn't have the right plan in place before they get to you? How do you help those people? Can you give us an example of some times that you've seen the shoe dropped a little too soon with matrimonial attorney before they ultimately got to see you?
The biggest issue is probably the way alimony is paid out, because now that could prevent someone from qualifying to even possibly refinance to remove the spouse or to move forward and purchase another property. That's the biggest issue. There's ways to work around that, where maybe we have to bring somebody else in on the loan, a family member, to co-sign. It's not the most ideal thing, and nobody wants to hear that I need your mother, father, brother, sister co-sign for you after you just went through this divorce. But that is a way to help this person and get around that issue. The other issue is basically the default. If somebody has defaulted on the mortgage and it wasn't written in the property settlement agreement that Mrs. is no longer responsible for the home and Mr. defaulted, that's a huge issue. Now all of a sudden Mrs. can't purchase a new property of her own because that language wasn't written in the property settlement agreement. So that would be something that would be an issue. And when something like that happens, it's just a matter of they may just need time. They may just need to wait it out 12 months and, get this house sold, get rid of this property, and then wait 12 months of, no mortgage delinquencies. Or they may need to, have somebody else, if they've moved on, maybe the mortgage needs to go in somebody else's name. There are other ways around that. I mean, ideally, you try to fix this from the start by you and I meeting and discussing everything so that we can put a plan in place for their future. Because it's not just, okay, we're divorced, now we're done, because there's that next part in their life that they really do need to take into consideration when writing out the property settlement agreement and, discussing how alimony and child support are going to be paid out, who's going to keep the home, are they going to keep the home, what's the timeline in order to refinance this property to get it out of the spouse's name. All these things are really important because there's guidelines in place, guidelines I don't make, but guidelines that the government makes. These are, mortgage and banking guidelines that do need to be followed to have these people qualify.
Yeah. Well, it's important that you mentioned the issue of defaulting because we've had situations where people have come to us here at the Williams Law Group where they were represented by somebody who didn't necessarily want to go through all of the rigmarole, as it was referred to, of going through a 50 or 60 or 70 page matrimonial agreement. They kind of did the nuts and bolts, right? You got the, more house is going to be, changed from joint ownership to husband only. Wife's name will be removed. And, we'll specify that a deed has to be executed and we'll give a time frame, but that's about it. And a lot of times we've gotten pushback from some attorneys that may be dabbling in matrimonial law and not necessarily recognize all the consequences, where they'll say, I shouldn't have to have my client read or have me read, 60 pages of matrimonial agreement. But we always push back and we say, look, all these contingencies about what happens in the event somebody is not able to qualify. What happens if a refinance doesn't go through? Who pays the realty transfer fee if we're transferring the property after 90 days? A lot of those consequences people don't think about. And once they have been spelled out, a lot of times a client will push back and say, I'm not prepared to do that because I'm scared now of all the things that could go wrong. But, that's what we're here for. That's what you're here for. That's what I'm here for, is to help people get to the right place with all of the advice and counsel that we've had, because my clients have gone through one divorce, sometimes two, sometimes three. I've gone through thousands. And I tell them that all the time. So let me ask you about something you mentioned earlier, which is the idea of if there's a default, there's been a change in economics, right? Because you were talking about casting income as 10,000, goes down to 9,000 when someone has a $1,000 alimony obligation, as opposed to saying somebody has a $1,000 a month debt. Which makes it seem like they chose to have, frivolous spending of 10% of their income, which obviously was not the choice, right?
Correct.
What happens if you're in a post-judgment situation? And let's say home was supposed to be deeded over from joint parties to one party, and that didn't happen. And now you're in a situation where it could be years after the fact, right? Let's just say people sat on their rights, and people do this. You'd be surprised. But, 2, 3, 4, 5 years have passed, and now somebody comes back and says, hey, I'd like to now get that mortgage refinance taken care of. What do you see? What are some of the types of issues that you've seen with people with regard to alimony and child support? Do you ever recommend modification be sought in order to be able to qualify? And how have you been involved in transactions like that in order to help people accomplish the goal of home ownership?
It really, goes down to, starts from how can we make sure that they actually do fit within those guidelines? So there was a lot covered here with your question, so I just want to kind of go step by step. You did say like if there was a modification. So you're referring to if somebody did like a loan modification?
Well, I was more talking about whether or not somebody might want to modify their alimony and child support. If you ever make a recommendation to somebody that, because of their change in circumstances post-judgment, where somebody is either earning more on one side or the other of the table, and they maybe want to come back and say, in light of the change of circumstances, now I want to seek to reduce my alimony and child support, or I want to seek more alimony and child support from my former spouse. How does that play in if you're now thinking about adding into the equation a refinance that didn't happen proximate to the divorce because of delay of the parties?
I see what you're saying. I recently had a client say to me, because he's in a situation where he's not going to qualify to purchase the home that he wants to purchase in the program that he wants to purchase it because of his alimony payments. So he said to me, Stephanie, what if I went back to my attorney and we restructured the way my alimony is paid out, and I redid my property settlement agreement and redid the whole thing? So I'm not going to give an answer to something that I don't have knowledge in. I'm not an attorney. So my answer to him was, well, mister, I don't know if that's really going to happen. And the time and money that it would take to make that happen is probably going to be the same amount of time that if you just purchase the home that we qualified for, number one, the way you can, or number two, and this client qualified for an FHA loan, because the debt to income ratios were they were allowed me to go a lot higher than a conventional loan. Now, I understand he didn't want an FHA loan because the PMI is permanent and this client's putting 20% down. But client, you don't qualify for a conventional loan on paper because of this alimony payment, but my numbers are allowing me to go FHA. So if you do want this home, let's just go FHA right now. And then when your alimony payments do drop off in 2-3 years, we can revisit your mortgage and refinance you into that conventional loan and remove the PMI. And then you'll be refinancing off of your current balance and not the balance that it is today. So all in all, they would be saving a lot of money. Sometimes people just have to understand the long term instead of just, well, I'm taking the FHA loan today and that's not what I want. So I'm going to go back to my attorney and say, I can't believe I'm in this agreement paying out X amount of alimony and now I can't qualify. That more than likely, and I'll ask you what you think, that's probably not going to happen. Because now you're basically going to go back to court and fight with your ex. Your ex isn't going to say, oh, you don't have to pay me $5,000 a month anymore. I'll take $1,000 for the next 2 years. Because now your ex, Mr. or Mrs., is living and counting on that money in order for them to live their life. So that's just basically opening up like a whole can of worms. So it's just, what can we do based on our circumstance today? Let's qualify you up what you're making and what you're paying out today.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Police actually said that could open up a whole can of worms, and she's 1,000% correct. So, this is a great point that you've made, that, sometimes people want what they want because they want it, and they don't necessarily consider that all transactions in divorce are financial transactions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're talking about child custody and what's in the best interest of a child, you're talking about your assets, your liabilities, your income, your expenses. Those are financial issues. And so you have to think about the cost to run the race as well as the finish line. And if you are in a situation where you run back to court, as police have said, a lot of things that can open up that can of worms where, okay, spouse, now that you want to go seeking a review of your support obligations, let me go back a few years to see how you afforded that Maserati, and why it is you've been vacationing in the south of France when I'm over here scraping by on $10,000 a month in alimony. I can't live on that. Maybe I should have retroactively gotten an increase. And you can't go back with child support. Some judges will let you in equity go back with alimony. So we have a lot of things that we advise clients about. But one of the things that I want to point out is how complex these transactions really are. So Stephanie is such a genius at this, and this is her area of expertise. You clearly can hear from her how much knowledge she has about this. So she makes it sound really easy. But it really isn't always that easy. What you have to think about is she's got calculators behind the scenes with those numbers where she can crunch numbers and kind of tell you what you qualify for. But then you also need to consider other ramifications. So in consulting with a divorce attorney, we look at your property settlement agreement and we look at, are you exposed here? Can you save a few bucks on alimony and child support, but are you going to get pegged on retroactive medical expenses you have been paying for the past 5 years? What's going to happen when you start digging around? Perhaps your spouse says, oh, wait, you didn't disclose a liability. Now I want taxes. Now I want my share of an asset. I want counsel fees. I want sanctions for you not having done that. And my personal favorite, the one thing we all hate, taxes. Taxes are everywhere. We have to consider the taxes. And until next year, we do have deductibility of alimony. And so what happens when you go back and you say, okay, I'm going to restructure this. Now I pay less in alimony, right? However,
Right.
you're going to, as a result of paying less in alimony, get a lower deduction, and that's going to affect other economics in your situation. So it's always wise to make sure that you're speaking with somebody who has a hub to other professionals. And here at the Williams Law Group, that is our model. We do not take our role as divorce attorneys as being the end all be all of life. We are life managers, but life managers require different professionals in those different areas. And Stephanie's one of those professionals. So again, I want to thank you, everybody that's coming in now. We're talking with Stephanie Rizzuto of Absolute Home Mortgage. Stephanie is a top 5 producer in her company, and Absolute Home Mortgage actually qualified as best of the best for Morris County in 2017, 2015, and 2014. So we have her expertise here today. And I just want to circle back a little bit to let Stephanie kind of talk to us about how she works with clients, because we talked about a little bit how Williams Law Groups, how we work with our clients. But Stephanie, can you tell us, who's an ideal client for you? How do you work with people? How are you able to give them the value of your expertise?
I have to be honest with you. Any person who is purchasing a home or any person who is refinancing for any reason, they are an ideal client, whether it's a first-time home buyer or somebody who's buying their 4th home or somebody who's buying their 4th investment property. Each client, has their own unique situation. So it's just a matter of figuring out how that client is going to benefit from my services and how that client is going to, in 30, 60, 90 days from now, after working with me for that whole time, how they're going to feel when this whole transaction is done. Specifically, when we're dealing with clients that are going through divorce, I would say the most important thing is just talking everything out with them, because there's a lot of changes going on in their life. There's changes going on financially. There's going to definitely be a physical move going on. So it's just really discussing all the options, everything that they do have available to them. What they're comfortable with, I would say ideally would be the number one thing that I usually do discuss with people from day one. It's not what you want, it's how do you feel and what's going to work for you, because what you want may not be what you can do. Because going through a divorce, people are going to have to make adjustments that they may not be able to see themselves. They may not be able to see 6 months into the future, that they're not going to be driving around the BMW car anymore because now they're just one person. So they need to be able to see that they're not going to be living in the same home with just one salary. So it's just a matter of making them comfortable, having them understand why they do qualify for what they do qualify for, mortgage-wise, that too. So someone doesn't hear, well, what do you mean? I live in a $500,000 home today, and now you're telling me I can only buy a $200,000 home. You have to tell them the why, and have them understand. Definitely the most important thing too is just transparency with people, just being honest with them, just being there for people. Letting them know that you're there via email, via phone call, via text message, whenever somebody needs me. You're always just there for them to either run a scenario by them, to answer any questions. I have people that ask me questions that sometimes aren't even related to the mortgage payment. So it's not just all about what's your mortgage payment, It's, questions about things that have to do with the whole real estate and mortgage transaction. The real estate attorney, the insurance, how do I do this? How do I do that? So it's just having those people to refer them to that I know, that I trust, just like you're doing here with your program, and knowing that that person's going to be able to move forward and be happy and that they're taken care of as well.
Yeah, well, taking care of clients is obviously the highest priority that we have here at Williams Law Group, and we know that that's one of your highest priorities as well. So that's one of the reasons why we invited Stephanie Rizzuto on today, and I want to thank everyone for participating. We're winding down the hour, so one of the things that I wanted to cover is you have a couple of people that were so impressed by what you've had to say about home mortgages that they're actually asking if you work with investment properties. So Stephanie, do you work with helping people with investment properties?
I do. I actually have a client closing next week who's purchasing an investment property, and it's not his first investment property. So I do help clients purchase investment properties, and what's cool about that is we get to work with the appraiser and figure out what the projected rental income is going to be on this property versus what your mortgage payment is going to be. And then we kind of crunch the numbers. Does this property make sense?
Yeah.
So that's cool.
So hopefully you can reach out. Hopefully you can reach out to Polisa after the show and maybe give her some guidance on perhaps getting together with her about her investment property or something.
Absolutely.
Or whomever would like a referral for that. One of the things that we started the hour with, and I neglected to mention this throughout the show because I've just been so impressed with the knowledge that Stephanie's sharing with us, is that for those of you that are watching the show, again, I'm Allison Williams, CEO and founder of Williams Law Group. We're here at our show, Moving Families Forward with Williams Law Group. And tonight we have had the benefit of our first guest, who is Stephanie Rizzuto from Absolute Home Mortgage. But one of the things that I would really love for you guys to do, if you've gotten value out of today's program, show me some love, give me some likes, let me know that you hear us, let me know that you're actually getting value out of what we have to offer. And I would be so grateful if you would like our page and like the show, as well as share the show. Our goal is really to expand our reach to provide this resource to the community. We service the entire state of New Jersey, but we are located in Short Hills, New Jersey. So for divorce, we are typically in Essex, Union, Morris, Bergen, Hudson, Passaic counties, as far down as Monmouth and Middlesex, because that is where I started my career. So I have an affinity for that area of our state. But the goal really here is not about generating more clients for the firm. We are growing. As I said before, we've grown 856% over the past 4 years. So the firm is definitely getting our name out there, reaching more people, helping more people. But I really want this resource to be a resource for the community. We have people that come to us all the time, whether they are seeking a divorce, seeking help, seeking to expand their life in some way. And we really are connectors. We help people get in contact with marriage therapists. You know, when somebody says, I'm contemplating divorce, our answer is not sign on the dotted line and let's get you booked. Our answer is, how can we help you? How can we be of service? And that might mean getting you into the hands of a counselor, or it might mean getting you into the hands of a financial planner so that you can start shoring yourself up before you take that step. But we are a resource for that. And so Moving Families Forward with Williams Law Group is our show to help people get information that they need about their families, about their lives, and about their well-being. So tonight we have had the benefit of having Stephanie Rizzuto with us from Absolute Home Mortgage. And as we are winding down, I want to give Stephanie the floor. She talked to us about how she works with families and how she works with clients. One thing that we did not talk about that I always laugh at, because we all have these stories as professionals. Stephanie, what are some of the odd things that people have kind of insisted upon when they've come to see you? Like, has somebody ever said, hey, I want a mortgage for $28,000 a month and I make $15,000 a month, and you said, oh, okay, how are we going to do that?
Oh, and, yes.
Like, talk to us a little bit about the quirky side of your business.
I mean, I do have to say, since our industry became so regulated, 2008, 9, and 2010, I have to say that craziness it's not as crazy anymore, but you just look at that. There's people that so a lot of people, they have a cash business, or they just save cash, like literally money in the mattress.
Do that? Really?
People do that. Well, yes, they do. And so if you have someone who has a cash business, they have a hard time sometimes understanding that they aren't going to be able to obtain a traditional mortgage for the amount that they would like to, because we're not using usable income. So, I can't, just
my mortgage money.
So I do get that. And then sometimes people get a little discouraged, maybe a little abrupt and angry with me, but I tell everybody, I don't make the rules. I just have to follow the rules so I can keep my job. Like I said to you, if I made the rules, I wouldn't be sitting here in New Jersey. Somebody would be serving me drinks on an island right now if I made those big government rules. But no, I don't make the rules. So, people that have a cash business, that is tough. And then they wonder why they're not qualifying for the dollar amount that they feel they should based on the amount of cash that they're bringing home each month and stuffing under their mattress.
Yeah, well, note to the public, if you're claiming $28,000 a year in income and
You're
you're
going to
living in a
qualify
big
on
mansion,
$28,000.
unless you bought that mansion in cash, you're going to have a real problem when it's time to separate. And that's one of the things that we talk to our clients about. It's a lot of people are fearful that they have these kind of little secrets, the skeletons in the closet they don't want to share, like the mattress money. And for people that are living their life off the mattress money, while it is not lawful, and we certainly don't endorse that. We don't we don't become tertiary toward those people. We give them advice and sound guidance about what the legal requirements are and what's going to happen when you're separating. But there are a lot of nuances that we have to navigate when you have people living kind of off grid, if you will.
Yes.
And you're right that the mortgage industry now has a lot of regulations that were not previously in place, because people used to be able to qualify for mortgages that you looked at their income and you say, how the heck were you ever affording this?
You weren't even looking at their income.
Just looking at, they look like a nice person, she's got on pretty makeup.
You were getting a written verification from their employer to state what their income was, and then they were able to close on the mortgage.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, that has changed. And so for that reason, if for nothing else, but certainly for that reason, you need to consult with somebody like Stephanie, who's able to tell you that mattress money is going to cause a problem for the kind of house that you want when you get divorced. Yes. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up our show today. For everyone, again, this is Williams Law Group. I am Allison Williams, the owner and founder of Williams Law Group. We are a family law firm located in Short Hills, New Jersey. We help families transition out of bad situations into the new life, their new nirvana. And as a part of that process, we have created our show here, Moving Families Forward with Williams Law Group. We're going to be here every Monday at 7 p.m. You can watch us live on Facebook. I'm going to have experts as qualified and capable as Stephanie, even though that's going to be tough because she gave us one hell of a humdinger to start. But I'm going to have a lot of different experts on our show. So for those of you that showed up live here today, thank you so much. For those of you that are going to see the show later, thank you so much. Please like and share if you got value out of today's program. We would love to be able to spread the word and help even more people move their families forward. And with that, I'm going to adjourn today's meeting. And thank you so much, Stephanie, for being with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.